Okay, this is the next video in my DevNet Associate series of videos. We're learning the basics of Python so we can get Cisco DevNet Associate certification. So we're using the Python Crash Course book by Eric Mathis to structure our Python learning. I'm on chapter 7, which is on user input and while loops, and it also covers the modulus operator. So let's start practicing some of the things that are introduced in the chapter just so we can get the basics down. So the first thing that he covers is adding some user input. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'm going to open up a file using the nano text editor, the command line text editor, and I'll open up a file, let's say, called chapter 7 practice. Okay, like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to get some user input. So what I'll say is message equals, and then I'm going to call the input function to get our user input. Now the thing with using this input function is that it'll prompt the user to type something for some keyboard input, and then it'll store that input in this variable as a string. But we need a prompt. So our prompt could be a string that says something like enter your name or something like that. So we say enter your name, and whatever we enter in the keyboard will be stored in this message, and then we can print it. So we'll say print message like that, and then I'll ask the user for input. It'll make our program or our script interactive because we're not assigning the variable, telling it what it is. We're going to ask the user for their input to fill in that information, and then it'll be stored in the program and then output to the screen. So Control X, Y, and Enter to save, and then we run the program by using the Python interpreter. And you can see it says enter your name. I put in Dan, and then it just echoed out or printed the name. So it didn't do much. If we want it to be a little bit better, we could have it print something like with an F string. Let's see here, with an F string, something like your name is, and then put this in between curly braces, and we'll do that. Control X, Y, and Enter to save and exit, and then run the program and enter your name, and I say Bob, and it says your name is Bob. Okay, there you go. So that is user input. And then the one thing that he points out about user input is that when you're using that user input and that user input gets stored in the variable, it's stored as a string and not as an integer. Well, that could be that could cause problems if you or errors if you assume that it's a number. In other words, if we open up that same file and we said age and said input enter your age, so we ask someone your age, and it says and then we say okay, enter your age, and then we say if age equals or is greater than or equal to 18, 1, 2, 3, 4, print you can vote. Else print you need to be 18 or older to vote. Something like that. So, okay, we'll see if this works. So this time we're saying age is our variable. It's going to ask us for our input. If we put in our age and we're over 18, if we're 18 or over, if age is greater than or equal to 18, if this condition is true, then it will get a message that says you can vote. else it's false, which means we're too young, it'll print out we can't. So now this should work. However, when we enter our age, the number is going to be stored as a string, and it's going to cause an error. So we'll see that. So let's see here. So Control X, Y, and enter to save, and then we'll run the program. It'll ask us our age, and we'll put in that we're 16, which is too young to vote. But you can see it doesn't work. It gives us an error and be like, well, what happened? Well, it kind of tells you. It says type error, greater than or equal to, is not supported between instances of string and integer. So it's kind of telling us the problem, like where the error happened. But what we can do to fix it is say, okay, what if we take age and then send age into an integer function, and we say age equals, and we'll put age, so we say age equals, and then we put the variable, which is our string of 21 or 16 or whatever, into the integer function, and this should convert age into an integer and then store it so that it's no longer just a string. And if you see what I mean here, you could say new age. New age equals integer age. So new age is now, or I could say int age equals, something like that. But I'll just say age, so it's less confusing. So it just saves some steps that way. But we're converting it from a string to an integer by using that function. So now Control X, Y, and enter, and we run the program, and we put in 16, and it says you need to be 18 or older to vote, and we run the program again, and we say that we're 21. It says you can vote. All right, so you can see here that why that's important to actually having to convert it from a string to a number depending on how you're using that user input. The next thing that's covered in the book is the modulus operator. And for that, I'm going to open up the Python interpreter. It's kind of interesting that it introduces the modulus operator. Now the modulus operator is a percentage sign, and it works like this. In the book he uses an example something like this: 3 percentage sign 3. So 3 modulus 3. Now what this is, it's kind of like dividing. So think of it like dividing. So 3 divided by 3, except it doesn't return the result, it returns the remainder. So 3 goes into 3 evenly, and there's no remainder. The remainder is 0. So if I do 3 modulus 3, the remainder is 0. But if I say 4 modulus 3, 3 goes into 4 one time, and the remainder is 1. 1's left over. So the result, or what's returned, is a 1. And 5 modulus 3 will be a 2. But watch what happens when we go up to 6. Now we say 6 modulus 3. Well, 3 goes into 6 2 times, the remainder is 0, so back to 0. And this is useful if you need sometimes to have a number sequence that repeats. And in this case, whatever you're dividing by will be the number sequence that repeats. So it's going to go from 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. And so once again, if I say 8 modulus 3, and then 9 modulus 3, well, 3 goes into 9 3 times, and 0. So you can see how it kind of repeats. And then the example that he uses in the book, which is a pretty interesting example. It's a good example. I'll open the file and we'll take a look at it. I'll just copy and paste it so that it's a little quicker for the video's sake. So here's the example from the book. And the example is something like this. Number equals input. We're going to get the user's input. Enter a number and I'll tell you if it's even or odd. Then we take that number and we turn it into an integer. Because we know it's a string, we need to convert it to an integer. Then number modulus 2 equals 0. So we do a modulus operation on it, and it's going to return either 0 or 1 because it's modulus 2. So if it's an even number like 4, 2 goes into 4 evenly, then the result will be 0. However, if the number's like 5, and 2 goes into 5 2 times with 1 remainder, so it'll be a 1. And then if this is true and it's a 0 returned, it'll be an even number. But if it's an odd number, like a 1 or a 3 or whatever, or a 67, it'll be odd. So let's give it a try here. So Control X, Y, and enter, and then we'll run the program. And it says, give us a number. And I'll put 1, and it'll say 1 is odd. We'll run it again, give us a number, 2, and the number's even. And it'll work with that whatever number, 103. That's odd. But if I run it and put 104, well, 2 goes into 104 evenly with 0 remainder, so the remainder's a 0. So in our program at that point, if this results in a 0, 0 equals 0 equals 0, that will return to true, and we'll get the result will be this. But this is going to be either one of two things, either a 0 or a 1. If it's a 0, it'll be true, and we'll get this. If it's a 1, it'll be false, and we'll get that. So that's kind of the modulus in action in the book. All right, so we'll just get rid of that, and we'll do the next thing. And the next thing is looking at a while loop. And the while loop is pretty good. In one of the previous videos, we looked at the for loop. And the for loop, we loop through a collection of items. We were looping through the items in a list, or we were looping through a number range. And as long as we had items in that list, in the array, the condition was true. And as long as we had a number range, as long as we were in the range, the condition was true, and the loop kept going. And as soon as we no longer had items to loop through, we had a false, and we exited the loop or broke out of the loop. Well, the while loop is similar. So the while loop is similar, except it's just if the condition is true, we keep looping. If the condition is false, we stop looping. So let's take a look at it. So we could say number equals 1. And then we'll say while, so this is a while loop, number is less than or equal to 10, we'll say. So that is the structure of our loop. It's very simple. While this is true, do something. And 1, 2, 3, 4, we'll say print number is, and then we'll do an F string on this. Number is, and then we'll put in the number. Okay, something like that. So this, if this is true and number is less than or equal to 10, it'll just loop indefinitely. And we can see that here, and this would be what we call an infinite loop. Because number's 1, it is less than 10, and there's nothing to change that, so it'll just loop until it's false, which will be never. So we'll try it out. So Control X, Y, and enter, and we'll run it. And you can see number is 1 is just going on forever. Oops, I needed a space there to make it nicer. Oh, so how do I get out of this infinite loop? Just Control C. Or I could close the bash terminal, or but it's going to loop forever, so we need to get out of it. So we'll fix that. We'll say number is, first of all, I want to put space there. And then after I print the statement, what I'll do is I'll increment that variable. So we'll say number plus equal, so add and then retotal, add 1 to it, something like that. So now number will go up by 1, and that variable will increment. And this is how we add 1 to a variable. Okay, let's try it out. Control X, Y, and enter to save it, and then run it. And you can see that it looped. Number is 1, and then it's incremented to 2, and then 3, and the number gets added another 1 to it, 4, 5, and as soon as it gets to 10, it prints out the number. It prints number is 10, and then it adds another number to it, which is 11, and all of a sudden, it's no longer true. So as soon as the number gets add one more number to it, and it's 11, then this condition is false, and we break out of the loop. Okay, let's look at another example that uses a string. So we're gonna open that. This one will use a string. So what I'm gonna do is I'll paste the strings. Let's paste the beginning of the script here just to speed things up. We have this variable prompt, and it's gonna say tell me something, and then prompt, we're gonna add on enter quit to end the program. Okay, Then we say message equals an empty string, and then while message does not equal the string quit. So this loop, this while loop, is going to loop while message does not equal quit. But as soon as message equals quit, it's going to break out of the loop or stop and exit out of the loop. Now I'll indent here, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then what we're going to do is we'll say message now equals, we're going to get some information, input, and then we'll pass in the user input, we'll pass in the variable prompt, which is the string here, which is 2 lines. Tell me something, and then enter quit to enter the program. So a 2-line kind of variable here of text. So message equals input, prompting the user for input. Instead of putting in a string here, we put in the variable which adds the text for our prompt for our user input. All right, then print the message. Print message. Okay, so right now message is equal to just an empty string, nothing. So we'll run the program, Control X, Y, and enter, and run the program. And it says there is our prompt. Tell me something, enter quit to end the program. So I could say hello, and it outputs hello. This is interesting, and it outputs that. And then if I put in quit, all of a sudden the condition is true and we exited the program. Notice I have my prompt back here. However, you have the word quit here also being output, so it also printed to the screen. And in the book, it shows you how well you could use a simple if statement to get rid of that. And so what I mean by that is I could copy it and paste it here. We'll go back into the program. And what I'll do is I'll just copy and paste that here. Edit, paste. And we say, okay, message. Notice I need to make sure I have the right indentation. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then there you go. There's so message equals input. We have our input. But then we say if message is not equal to quit, print the message. So if the message is quit, we will escape out of the program. We won't print that message. So let's see if that works. So Control X, Y, and enter, and run the program. Enter quit to enter the program. I type quit and hit enter, and yes, it just exits the program without printing the word quit. So that's also covered in the book. All right, let's run the next example. The next example is using a flag, which is also pretty good, pretty important that we cover that. In programming, a flag is usually just a variable that's set to true or false, or off or on, or 1 or 0. And it's just meant to say whether the status of something is a go or if it's not a go. So flag equals true. So the flag can either be up or down, right? True or false. So our flag is true, and we'll say while flag. So while, this basically is short for while flag is true. So if I just say while flag, it means while flag is true. And flag is true. So message, input, and then we want to have our prompt here, whatever our prompt is. Let's see here. I want that prompt back. Prompt equals enter your age. Something like that, right? Okay, so we ask for some user input, enter your age, and if message, let's see here. If message equals quit, then will change active to false, which will mean all of a sudden our condition will no longer be true. While flag will be flag is false, then we'll no longer have that condition. Else, we could say print message. Okay, enter your age, or press or enter quit. There we go. That looks good. All right, so we're looking here. We could put spaces if we want. If message equals the string quit, then cool. All right. Notice I'm going to change this because enter your age indicates we're going to do numbers, which would then be strings, but I'll say enter your name, and then we'll say, okay, print message. All right, Control X, Y, and enter. We'll run the program. It says enter your name or enter quit. I'll put Dan, and it says outputs Dan. I'll put in quit, and it did not work. Okay, so we're gonna have to go back in there and take a look at what the problem is. So Control C to exit, and we'll take a look. While flag is true, message equals user input for the prompt. If message equals quit, active equals false, and we should be done at that point. I'm sorry, active equals false. No. This is part of what's in the book. In the book it says active equals false, but our variable, I changed it, is flag. So there it is. There's our problem. It's kind of good to see yourself fixing your code. You're going to have to do that a lot. All right, Control X, Y, and enter. Run the program. Put your name. Okay, there it goes. It outputs your name. Put quit, and it exits, and you're done. The book has many more good examples. I'll just show another one by copying and pasting it from the book, because you'll want to go through all of the examples, and there's some good ones, but the video is going to run too long. So I'll just say edit, paste. So our prompt, enter the name of a city you have visited, enter quit when you are finished. So in this while loop, you can see that it says while true. Well, this is while and then the Boolean true. So this is always going to be true. This will never be false. So the only way to exit out of this loop is by using a break, the break keyword. So it says here, city equals, and then it asks for your input. If city equals quit, then we'll break out of the loop. So literally, that is our way of getting out of this loop, right? Out of this infinite loop is only if we type quit here, because if we type quit and city equals quit, then the break will get executed and we'll escape out. Okay, so we'll just try that out here. So we'll say Control X, Y, and enter to save. We'll run the program. And I'll say, okay, city, Boston. I'd love to go to Boston. Okay, great. If I want to quit, I put quit, and then we escape out. All of that because in that example, this loop isn't infinitely true. We need the break to get out of it. So once again, Chapter 7 in the book, Crash Course on Python by Eric Mathis, No Starch Press. Great book. It covers loops, while loops. It covers user input, and also the modulus operator.